Hello and welcome back to Retro Ranger. Today we're going to be talking about a new game developed for an older system. One of my favorites, in fact, the Sega Dreamcast. The game is called Intrepid Izzy and it was released in August of 2021. It's an action platformer / Metroidvania, and the team that created it, the Senile team, is really small, which makes the accomplishment all the more impressive. It was funded in 2017 on Kickstarter, and at the time of this video, released on Steam, the Dreamcast, and there's a PS4 version on the way. With a Dreamcast release, the hype is real. Does it live up to the hype? Well, let's find out. Since a new physical Dreamcast release is somewhat rare these days, let's quickly take a look at what's all included in the packaging. As typical with Dreamcast games, Intrepid Izzy comes with a standard jewel case that features art or labeling on the spine, the inside, back, and disc. I bought my copy from Play Asia and ended up with the Japanese version, and that's totally fine since it's region-free and will play in my North American Dreamcast. Unlike most physical games today that are published by big AAA ones, you get a manual, and a big hats off to the Senile team for this gorgeous and colored manual. While I get that it costs money to print these things, it feels so unsatisfying to open up these new games only to find a blank shell and just the game. While I wish this one in particular included a bestiary so that I could know the fun names these enemies have, it does cover the basics like controls, saving, checkpoints, though admittedly they're all self-explanatory. It does look and feel very nice though. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is an action platformer and Metroidvania, in the sense that you'll be trekking around and back to various levels after getting some upgrades to ultimately require 4 gems to get to the final boss. While most levels connect together, all touch a connecting town that acts as sort of a hub world. To help traverse the overall world, there are mirrors that can transport you to and from locations once you discover them. With no surprise given the title, you play as Izzy as you work your way through a colorful and unique set of levels, filled with what you'd expect from the genre: platforming, combat, and some light puzzle solving. The control of Izzy feels great. The core expectations of jumping and mid-flight control are there, so controlling Izzy is easy to do. One control that's outside of typical that I really appreciate is the ability to look ahead in any direction using a button and directional input. While this is a great feature and provides virtually no leaps of faith, which are always cheap and frustrating, there are some gaps that look ahead won't do, specifically since you can't do it mid-air, but the developer does use some pickups as hints as to where to go or land. Speaking of the pickups, you can get coins, which I'm guessing you can turn in at the town hub, but suffice to say that I didn't need these or use them. More importantly, you can get and collect purple jewels. These will refill your special meter, which is used and all the time. As you continue your travels, you'll get upgrades in the form of different costumes that each bring a different special. As you'd expect from a Metroidvania, these new specials often let you progress in areas that you were previously blocked. The level design is good and sprawling like these games often are. I would have loved to see a map overlay on the HUD, but there is a map in the menu and that does work fine as an only alternative. If you explore well enough, you can actually get a dungeon map, which helps when you need that hint on what's left to explore. Despite generally good level design, there were a few places that you can actually get stuck and have to soft lock and ultimately reset due to how the map is designed. These are acknowledged in a forum post by the developer, and he estimated that there were actually 3 such locations that were found after the Dreamcast disc pressing. As luck would have it, I of course found 2 of them. If you save often enough, the reset doesn't sting quite so bad. It was nice to see that the developer is engaging with the community on a few different locations I found, and you can tell it's a passion project for him, which I really respect. Beyond getting stuck, There's actually a few rougher edges that, while annoying at times, didn't crush the whole experience, thankfully. Things like not getting a contextually helpful error message for when your VMU was full and you couldn't save, but perhaps more impactful is the game registering an up press over doors when it's not intended. I actually use the D-pad, even though the analog stick is supported, so the accidental up register was quite annoying and surprising to happen so often when it's met with such an unfortunate load time. While those load times are in line with a Dreamcast game, having to go back and forth loads from an accidental door transition can definitely get tiresome. Thankfully, there's plenty to keep you waiting for those loads to finish. The music is fitting for the overall bright and colorful art style, reminding me a lot of the Shantae series. The enemies are just as fun and colorful too, and as you get more upgrades at your disposal, combat with them becomes much more fun. One nice addition to the feel of this game is that the enemies can and do get squashed by boulders, they can die on spikes, or even get squashed from pushing stones on top of them. Speaking of enemies, each level has a boss which matches the wonderful art style. These bosses have relatively simple patterns, but are uniquely designed to give them each a special feel. I did feel underwhelmed with these bosses though in a few ways. First, since they have few or sometimes just one pattern, the boss fights themselves lasted too long for not mixing it up. Bosses ended up with enough HP that you tend to do the same 1 to 2 cycles over and over. Secondly, none of the bosses seem to require or even benefit from the combat upgrades. Bosses should be a test of what you've gained or hardened over the course of a level, so to see none of these specials incorporated into the fights was a bit of a letdown. These bosses have a ton of potential given the art, but fell short on the fun factor. My favorite boss though was this squid, as it featured a cool requirement to keep the tentacles off the boat or else it would sink. It was a great divide of priority that really shined on the potential of these large and great looking fights. Lastly, one really strong part of this game is the humor. The dialogue was well crafted and genuinely funny. For an easy pick it up and play game, it didn't need to have witty text or dialogue at all for the most part, but it delivers big time in this way, and it's something that made sure I talked to everyone I could, just to see what they'd say. Overall, does Intrepid Izzy live up to the hype? In a lot of ways I would say yes. Perhaps this gets washed away in the sea of games on Steam and the PS4, but as a Dreamcast release, this definitely stands out in the library, and I'm happy to have it in my collection. It has its flaws, yes, but there's a lot of charm here too to make this game approachable and, more importantly, enjoyable. If you're looking for a lighthearted and non-daunting Metroidvania, especially on the Dreamcast, Intrepid Izzy is a great choice through and through. Have you already played Intrepid Izzy? Let me know what you thought. Until next time, thank you for watching.